That was actually a very good historical account of what transpired. Made me tired listening to it, to be honest with you. It's good to be here. And it's actually good to be here and come into our nation's capital and talk about a subject I feel rather passionately about. And that's about the future of what is, really a young country here. This American experiment is really what I wanted to visit with you about. It's an experiment that I think you'd have to agree with me that it's produced prosperity probably like the world hasn't seen before. And it's been a prosperity that's been driven, I believe, by a fairly simple formula. It's a formula that has basically used the unleashed power of free enterprise and combined that with a commitment towards equal opportunity for all of its citizens. And you put those together and it's created an unbelievable amount of prosperity over time. It is an experiment that we're seeing right now has obviously had a number of ups and downs over the years, and I would suggest to you, though, that that's the beauty of the experiment that we're experiencing right now, because so far, for every downturn we've experienced, we've also experienced an upturn. And that's just kind of the nature of free and open markets. They produce tremendous growth over time. I think most of us would not argue that they do produce tremendous growth, but that growth does come in cycles. And it always has come in cycles. It always will come in cycles. And it just seems to me that the draw of the human spirit towards prosperity is too strong to keep down over time. And I don't want to suggest that the economic problems we're experiencing right now are going to be easily overcome. They are complex. I think they are deep-rooted, in fact, and they're not going to be resolved overnight. I'm not Pollyannish about it. But in spite of a lot of the pessimism that we're all experiencing, seeing, and reading right now, I do believe we're going to come through this cycle, just like we have all the other business cycles we had in this country. We're going to come through a little more smarter. We're going to come through a little more efficient, a little more productive, and I do believe we're going to be poised for growth as we come out of this. I think we all ought to step back, quite frankly, and commend the administration for a willingness to step up and take some very bold action in an effort to try to stem the length and the nature of this down cycle. I would also suggest that AT&T, it's not our nature to sit back and wait on government to solve all of our problems. I do think a couple of weeks ago when the President spoke to Congress that he nailed it when he said that the answers to our problems exist in our laboratories and universities, and in our fields and our factories, in the imaginations of our entrepreneurs and the pride of the hardest working people on earth. I like that a lot. And I have to agree completely with that statement. It's the individual who's out tinkering in the garage or the backyard, and the leaders of big companies and small companies that are actually making a difference right now. And it's the folks with big dreams. It's the people with new ideas and the courage to take a risk and to invest in this kind of environment that'll make the difference. And I do believe that we need a lot more of that kind of spirit right now from corporate America and from corporate American leadership to invest in America, to invest in the future of this country, help get this economy back on track and growing, and to create sustainable growth and get back to a pursuit of prosperity. My number one job at AT&T, it's really kind of simple. My number one job is to create long-term sustainable growth. And I really only know of one way to do that, and that's by investing. And we invest in areas that drive sustainable long-term growth. And for me, that really can be summed up in two things: technology and people. First, we have to continue investing, I believe, aggressively in the technological infrastructure of this country. And for AT&T, that's real simple. What that means is investing in advanced communication networks and capabilities that'll drive productivity and economic growth. I think those are synonymous, actually. And then second, I think we have to invest more in America's people infrastructure. Specifically, that means high-tech jobs, better education, and then new and improved ideas for the delivery of health care. So what I want to do here for the next few moments is just share with you a little bit of the investments that AT&T is making in each of these areas. And I'm going to start with technology. And when I talk about technology and growth, I want to talk specifically about one core area that is really instrumental in driving economic and growth and prosperity. And it's a variable we call connectivity. And it's a real simple equation in my mind, and that is when you put people together, when you connect people, you get commercial velocity. You get an acceleration of business velocity. And business velocity equals economic growth. And the secret ingredient for unleashing that kind of commercial activity and commercial velocity is by connecting people. And it doesn't matter whether you connect people by virtue of roads or if you connect people by virtue of railways or airports. You connect people, you create markets, and you create growth, and you create commercial velocity. And it's frankly, it's been that way throughout history, throughout the history of man, in all candor. But one thing that we've noticed in our business, and we're obviously biased to this, one area of connectivity has driven more commercial velocity than just about anything we have witnessed throughout history, and that's the communication networks. And this all started, you heard David talk about the history of this thing, but about 100 years ago with the first fixed-line voice communication networks, accelerating commercial velocity. And then those fixed-line voice networks run tethered. They became wireless, and you saw commercial velocity continue to accelerate. And then we brought out the Internet, and then broadband, and the commercial velocity continued to move up. And now you're seeing something today, which is mobile broadband. These kind of devices are out here. And with mobile broadband, you're seeing commercial velocity, or I call it RPMs, like the world, frankly, hasn't seen before. And what we have noticed is every time we've invested and built communications infrastructure, networks, and capabilities, we have seen productivity and commercial velocity step up. Commercial velocity is how economies grow. I fundamentally believe that. It's how jobs are created. It is the core source of prosperity, and you see this play itself out around the world time and again. And today, this environment and this economy is in recession. It's slow to negative growth, but the underlying demand for this kind of connectivity is continuing to grow. In fact, right now, AT&T's volumes on our networks are up year over year at about a 50% pace, growing 50% the amount of volumes on these networks. Most of that is obviously video and data. Probably no surprise to you. Last summer, we completed building the most advanced internet backbone network in the world. We finished it off last summer. We expect within 3 years the volumes on that internet backbone to have quadrupled. So you're seeing this thing continue to grow. And to stay ahead of that kind of demand curve, you know what's required, right? Investment. You have to continue to invest to chase this kind of demand. $38 billion we've invested in these networks over the last 2 years. And by the way, that's more than any U.S. telecom or technology company in the United States. We're not going to be able to stop. In fact, this year we plan to invest another $17 to $18 billion in our network infrastructures. Most of that being to continue to push out the broadband capabilities in both our wired as well as our wireless networks. And I happen to be very pleased to hear the President talk about the importance of the communications infrastructure and making that a priority. I personally believe that there are few areas that could have the economic effect that those types of investments can make. Then you look at the economic ecosystem that develops around these infrastructures, and it continues to be very impressive. 10 years ago, AT&T built the largest, most pervasive broadband, fixed-line broadband network in the United States. And what that network did was enable a lot of new startups to emerge and new business models to emerge. And today, those little startups are household names. They're multi-billion-dollar market cap companies. You know them. It's Google, Amazon, eBay. Those all grew up around the broadband infrastructure that was developed during the 90s. Now you're starting to see that same economic multiplier occur with wireless broadband business models. And you're going to see this continue as we invest further in fourth-generation wireless broadband models. So I think the potential here is large. I really do. I think it's huge. There is one study out there, you can pick your study, but there's one study of a reputable organization that says wireless broadband by itself will add $860 billion to the U.S. GDP over the next 10 years. So it's not an inconsequential number. But I tell you, our investments in technology, they're not just about driving commerce and commercial velocity. What we're seeing, and we're seeing this play out considerably, is that as we make these investments, they're providing this wonderful path to a cleaner environment and a cleaner way of doing business. And the best example that I have of this is one that I'm living day in and day out, and that's our partnership with Cisco to offer a product called telepresence. Anybody here use telepresence? I see a lot of hands, right? If you don't know what it is, I tell people this technology is so good that it borders on being creepy, because it's life-size video conferencing in high definition, high fidelity audio. And it's legitimately just like being across the table from the individual that you're video conferencing with. And we've installed this technology around the world in several of our locations around the globe. Personally, this year to date, my travel is down 44%. So it's making that kind of difference. It's changing the way we govern our business. I think it's significant. Now you take that and you multiply that capability across corporate America. And you begin to move it down market into mid-sized companies, move it down into small biz. And as we get the bandwidth requirements down, think about moving this into the home, into the consumer environment. I want you to think about, quite frankly, having high-def video conferencing capability from these kind of devices. Think about what that does. Think about what that does to commercial velocity. We believe this is really going to be a game changer. We think it's going to change how we do business at AT&T and how corporate America does business. In fact, there are a number of economists looking at this, and they say that if the U.S. companies were to displace 10% of their travel with video conferencing, the U.S. could reduce carbon emissions by 35 million tons per year. That's per year. Obviously, our commitment to energy efficiency goes beyond just the products and services we sell. We think that's important, but it goes beyond that. It also includes how we run our business and how we operate day in and day out. Every day at AT&T, we connect about 300 million people around the globe. And as you would guess, that requires a lot of infrastructure and services and support to make that happen. And that includes about 85,000 vehicles that we have out on the roads at any point in time. And what we're real proud to announce today is that AT&T is making the largest ever commitment by an American company to purchase alternative fuel vehicles. $565 million commitment, and it involves a couple of initiatives specifically. First, that is, over the next 5 years, we're going to purchase about 8,000 vehicles that run on compressed natural gas. By the way, these vehicles are going to be built by the U.S. auto industry here in the States. They'll produce about 25% less greenhouse gas emissions than our traditional gas vehicles. And we all know the equation. Natural gas is cheaper. It happens to be a lot cleaner. And there happens to be a lot of it right here in the United States. Which our second initiative involves replacing about all, actually, of our 7,100 commercial or passenger vehicles over the next 10 years. And we'll replace those with alternative fuel vehicles as well. We'll start with electric hybrids. Those are about 39% more fuel efficient and reduce greenhouse gas emissions by around 30%. And then with these two new multi-year commitments, our total alternative fuel fleet will grow from about 100 today to more than 15,000 by 2020. This fleet's going to significantly lower our fuel costs. And over the next 10 years, it's going to reduce our consumption of traditional gasoline by about 49 million gallons. So it's good for the environment. I think you'd be hard to argue with that. It's obviously going to reduce our reliance on foreign oil. My new neighbor, Boone Pickens, and I have talked a lot about that equation. And I think it's going to give a big boost to America's alternative fuel industry, kind of kickstart this thing, creating the opportunity for more new clean energy type jobs and manufacturing. And this commitment, it underscores my central point in all this, and that is that American businesses not only can, but I believe they will play the critical role in driving future economic growth through investments that we make like this today. America's future also depends on how well we invest in our people and our communities, and that starts with jobs. The vast majority of our 300,000 employees that you heard David talk about are located right here in the United States. And of those 300,000, about 60% of them are union represented. It gives us the largest full-time union workforce of any company in America. In fact, it's more than the big three automakers combined. That's our unionized workforce. And we happen to be rather proud of that. We have a very proud and strong partnership with our represented union And we've built our unions. We've built this company with our unions over the years. In fact, Larry Cohen, I don't know if you've met him, he's the president of the Communication Workers of America. He's a very good partner, and I'd have to say he's also a good friend. He represents his people very well. He's represented here this morning by Annie Hill of the CWA. And they really do a terrific job of representing their folks. And Larry, he understands the importance of U.S. companies investing in these good high-tech jobs that we're talking about. High-tech jobs that have good wages and pay good benefits. And while our overall workforce, because of this economic slowdown right now, is going to decline this year, we expect to add 3,000 new high-tech jobs. These are union-represented jobs this year. And they're going to be concentrated, as you might guess, in our growth areas, which are wireless and video and broadband. And with the new jobs that we're adding this year, we're going to finish off a commitment that we made 2 years ago. And we did this in partnership with Larry. And that is to bring 5,000 of these high-tech jobs back onto the U.S. payroll. These jobs had been outsourced to vendors who had put most of them overseas. We'll finish off this year bringing those 5,000 jobs back to the United States, and we're real proud of that. So it starts with jobs, but I believe U.S. companies are going to have to also commit to providing their employees with modern, state-of-the-art access and delivery to health care. And I do applaud the President's commitment to tackle this issue. I think it's very important. If you want to make American businesses more competitive, and if you want to help them invest more in infrastructure, I think fewer things could have a bigger impact than new ideas for reining in these health care costs. At AT&T, we spend every year about $5.5 billion to provide health care to 1.2 million employees, retirees, and their dependents. That's a big number. And a few years ago, in fact 4 years ago, we took on an initiative to see what we could do to rein in these cost curves while maintaining access to world-class health care for all of our employees. And what we did is we implemented a consumer-driven health care plan, and it covers more than 250,000 employees, retirees, and their dependents. And what this plan did was required that our employees take an active role in managing their health care. They'd have to be efficient in acquiring their health care. And the results, I think, have been impressive. Over that 4-year period of time, they still have access to world-class health care, and the employees' out-of-pocket costs and the company's costs have declined now for 4 consecutive years. Now, I think that's impressive, especially when you stack it up against the national average, where health care costs have increased on average 7%. We have some other ideas where we've partnered with the CWA. It's a real simple idea. If you make less, you pay less for your health care. There's a lot of things we can do out here to address this issue. I happen to believe that it's a fixable issue, that we can deal with this. We're going to have to try new ideas and new things to make it come to pass. And then that brings us to another issue that I wanted to raise this morning, and it's one that we're very active in addressing. That's America's high school dropout crisis. And I don't think the word crisis overstates the issue. We all know the stats on this. Every year, more than 1 million kids are dropping out of high school. Nearly 1/3 of all the public high school kids will not graduate with their class members. And this is another problem that I just think we're going to have to step up and address in a big way. I strongly believe that the business community has a strong role to play in making this happen. One of the first things I did when I accepted this job was directed our foundation to take all of your attention, all your focus and resources, and direct it towards this issue. It's an issue that's very big for AT&T, and so last year we launched a program, and we call it the Aspire program. And we've committed $100 million towards addressing this issue, or working towards a resolution on this issue. It's the biggest and most significant investment that we've ever made in education in our company's history. And the bulk of this giving is going to schools and nonprofits that are already doing really good work here. They're organizations that are moving the needle in the high school dropout problem. But what they need is more money to help them scale their successes more broadly. And so that's where we're focused. But it's about more than money, quite frankly. You know, it's about being personally committed and trying to see these initiatives through. And that's why we're working with Junior Achievement. And we're working with them to offer 100,000 students the opportunity to job shadow with AT&T employees. I happen to be the first job shadow project. I had a young man named Alex come and job shadow me for half a day. And it was a very interesting day. I got a lot out of it. Alex got a lot out of it. Got an email from Alex, said he's no longer looking forward to graduating high school. He wants to go to college. And today, he's enrolled in the business school at the University of Texas at Austin. I was hoping he would pursue a 4-year education. That was a joke, Jim Saccone. Strong supporter of the University of Texas. It's just the Big 12 basketball tournament starts today in his blood, okay? But Alex is doing quite well. He's in his second semester. He's doing terrific. And it's an indication or an example of how you can help motivate, inspire kids to go on and do things that they might not have even considered otherwise. And I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on education. I am far from an expert, but I do know that solving this dropout epidemic is going to require the collective effort of everybody working together. I mean, we're going to have the educators engaged in this, parents, government, and America's business community is going to have to step up and engage on this issue. So these are just a few ways where we, AT&T, are investing in America's future prosperity. Tens of thousands of businesses I know are out there. You're doing the exact same thing. You're investing in your people, your communities, and investing in opportunities that are going to create jobs and strengthen this economy. I know that. I think that's how we create sustainable long-term growth, though, and prosperity in this country. And I believe it's something the business community is uniquely suited to deliver. Time to invest in America's future is not when this thing turns. The time to invest in America's future, I believe, is right now. And we're proud to do our part. Looking forward to working with the new administration, with our policymakers and other U.S. companies in laying the groundwork for this prosperous future. And by working together and investing together, I do believe we can accelerate this velocity of commerce in this country. So I appreciate very much your time and attention and your attendance this morning. And David, be glad to take questions.
Up their questions or some cards, I think, but if we don't have them, we have a couple that have already come in. One, what type of cell phone do you use, and do you use an Apple iPhone?
Yeah, I use the iPhone. In fact, I was what we call a crackberry addict, right? A BlackBerry addict for many, many years, and it's still a great product. We sell a lot of BlackBerries, and I told Steve Jobs the day that I put my BlackBerry away is the day you've got a product that is ready for corporate class, email, and so forth. That's the only device I'm carrying, so I think we're there.
Where do you see the greatest growth opportunities for AT&T, in the United States or outside the United States?
Our growth is, and I say this internally, it's all about mobility. And I believe that everything that you do today, every application that you use on your desktop, everything that you do at home, over time, your expectation as a consumer or a business is that it will be mobile. And so we're on an evangelical tear, if you will, to ensure that everything that we offer our customers is mobile. That's why you saw last year, AT&T, we went and spent about $9 billion last year in investment on buying nothing but airwaves. Wireless spectrum, Bill Kernard. And we spent that money because we believe the demand for these wireless services is going to continue to grow, and it's going to grow via wireless, and so you're going to need more and more spectrum to deliver the kind of services that you and I are going to expect over time. So think mobility, and then when you look outside the United States, in emerging markets, you're seeing that phenomenon actually play out quicker than you are in developed countries right now. And so we think the opportunities outside the United States will be significant. We're doing a lot outside the United States in our enterprise business segment, but wireless is going to be a big opportunity for us inside and outside the U.S.
Okay. This question may move the market. Companies are cutting dividends. Your stock is at a 7% dividend yield. How safe is AT&T's dividend and cash flow?
It's a very common question these days, as you might guess. That's obviously question you have to be very cautious in how you answer. But what I would tell you is we're very proud. You heard David talk about the history of this company. This company, it was birthed in 1984 out of AT&T. We have been a company now for over 25 years. All 25 years that we have been in existence, we have increased our dividend. All 25 years. And that includes back in 2001, 2002, when our industry was in a crisis mode. And in fact, I'll be honest with you, this environment is tough. It's a very difficult environment. But it really isn't much more difficult in our industry than what we experienced back in the 01-02 time frame. During that time frame, we continued to increase our dividend throughout that environment. And so we're proud of that history, and as a company, like I said, we're going to continue investing.
Okay, thank you. You have a good relationship with the labor unions you mentioned. What is your position on card check?
I hear, oh. Was that you, Annie? We're probably one of the least affected companies. You heard the statistics a moment ago in terms of how it would impact our company, because we have a very large percentage of our workforce that is represented by the union. There are obviously aspects of the Labor Free Choice Act that we do not endorse, and and Annie and Larry know these, but secret ballots we think are just inherently important, and we think that ought to be a part of anything we do going forward. And then first contract arbitration, how that manifests itself is obviously very important. But, we're probably lesser affected than most companies in the U.S.
How long before the iPhone has video capability, and when will we see 4G broadband?
It depends on how you define video capability, but, I can pull out and watch a YouTube video right now, or people email me videos. I can watch those on my iPhone now. When you mean live streaming video, I think the iPhone, I don't know when Steve Jobs is going to bring that capability into the Apple iPhone. We have products now that have live streaming video on them. In fact, we have a product, I'll give you a real quick commercial. You go buy one of our video streaming products, you will get every single game in the NCAA tournament free, all right? So you can watch it. Go get one. It's a really great product. But these technologies are going to evolve. They are evolving so fast. They're evolving at light speed, and our technologies are obsoleting. It's why you have to continue to invest in these networks.
How do we get on the electric grid the commercial velocity we are getting on our communications grid?
I'm having a hard enough time tackling the telecom side of this thing, much less the electrical grid. I believe that a lot of what you're seeing, and this will probably get some reaction, but a lot of what you're seeing in telecom is a result of the regulatory environment that's been put in place over the last few years. And these businesses, whether it be electric or whether it be telecom, they require unbelievable amounts of investment. Billions and billions of dollars of capital have to be committed to these industries to continue to push the technological curve. And I will tell you arithmetically, this isn't speculation, this isn't my opinion. If you want to stifle investment, if you want to slow down the amount of capital attracted into these industries, put burdensome regulatory requirements on these industries. But there's a direct inverse correlation. Less regulation results in more investment. We've seen it play itself out. I can give you specific data and details, going back over time, where you can just see this inverse relationship. And so putting the right structure in place to make sure folks aren't disadvantaged, but giving some kind of line of sight and visibility to returns for investment put into these industries will drive investment into them.
You became head of AT&T at the age of 47, the same age as Barack Obama became President of the United States. Have you ever considered running for office or going into the government?
No.
Why?
Because.
Okay, can you comment on AT&T's commitment to ensuring that the technologies it develops are accessible to people with disabilities?
Yeah, in fact, I think we have a really good track record here. I mean, the source of the question may be some specific that I'm not aware of, but I think regardless of what type of impairments or disabilities folks have, we have a real good track record of addressing those. Everything from hearing impaired to vision impaired. We have products, we have capabilities, we have support centers who literally do nothing but support, folks with those kinds of needs. And so our objective is always to make sure that when we bring products and services to market that we meet those kind of needs, whether it be our video product or anything else.
If you had to pick one, will Verizon buy Vodafone or will Vodafone buy Verizon?
You tell me. I would like to know that as well. I have absolutely no idea if one or neither one of those would ever happen. I really don't.
What keeps you up at night in terms of worrying about your company?
Annie Hill right here. We actually, we just finished a big labor negotiation on our wireless contract, and it was a hard-fought negotiation, and I feel like we came to a really good place with our labor union. Now what we call our core contract, our fixed line contracts are coming up, and the contract expires April 4 is the first one, Annie, is that right? And Annie knows where we are on this. You heard in my remarks, the number one of the top issues I think we as a country face, we as AT&T face, are the healthcare costs and the healthcare cost trends. And these trends and these costs, they're not sustainable. They're not sustainable for us as a country. They're not sustainable for us as a company. And so we have to find some creative, unique ways of addressing this in this labor negotiation coming up. So I would tell you that's one of the main areas that are keeping me awake, literally, because we're talking to Annie and Larry, at all hours of the night right now. Set that aside. It's interesting, and I mentioned it a moment ago, the kind of investment required to keep this information, telecom investment and infrastructure state-of-the-art and moving forward. The amount of investment is really significant. And the obsolescence curves that we are riding now in this industry are impressive. And I'll give you a classic case. We used to come in and put in a long-distance switch in these networks. 50 years later, we're still operating it and it's still generating revenue. 10 years ago, we put a wireless technology infrastructure in place. It's a technology called TDMA. Most of you probably never even heard of it. That technology is not only obsolete, 10 years later, it's out. It's out of our network. It has been totally replaced. Now think about multi-billion-dollar technological obsolescence curves, riding those kind of curves. We have got to make sure that we get the policy right on this stuff, because this thing changes so fast that we as a country can be obsolete, our technology can be obsolete, this economic and commercial velocity I'm talking about, it absolutely in this day and age is dependent upon having this kind of infrastructure in place. And so getting the public policy right is really, really high on my priority right now.
Okay. One last question. What do you see as the future of fixed line telephone service compared to wireless?
Obviously, fixed line telephone service is declining. It's an interesting phenomenon, right? And that is what we've seen, at 25, when I started with this business almost 27 years ago, this is how many wireless customers we had. And today we have 77 million wireless customers. And what's happening? The voice, your voice service has largely moved here. This is probably your default medium for communicating by voice. We still have these very valuable wires and infrastructures going into people's homes and into their businesses. So what did we do back in the late 90s? We developed technology to move data at a very high speed over those wires going into your house. We call it broadband. And so as that technology developed and evolved, we had enough bandwidth, we were able to mine enough bandwidth out of those pipes going into your house that now we're delivering video over that infrastructure. Well, that's a good thing, because what's happening? Your broadband is now moving here. Well, that's okay. Broadband moves to wireless, now video is moving on to the fixed line facilities. We will continue to evolve the kinds of services that we deliver over this infrastructure. There's always going to be some kind of value delivered over the wires going into the house. Voice is wireless, broadband will move to wireless, video moves now onto the pipes. You'll see this thing just continue to evolve.
Just the final one I actually want to ask you is this one. your brother got you a job, your older brother got you a job at Southwestern Bell. He still works there. He now works for you. How does that work out?
They like to get the boy with the silk tie in town a lot. Talk to him about what are you guys thinking up there. I tell people I got my job the old-fashioned way. My brother got me on, right? And I would tell you, when I first took this particular job, as chairman, obviously I'm bound by the SEC related party transaction rules. And my brother working for our company is technically a related party transaction. And so our board has to authorize each year him continuing to work for AT&T. In the first year I had this job, the board did in fact approve his continued employment with our company, and I sent him a copy of the board resolution, and I said, congratulations, you can stay on another year. And he responded back, if anybody has to leave, I was here first, and I got you on your leaving. So it's gone well.
Thank you very much.